Grifton, Southside, Greenville, North Carolina.
All right. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Let's Talk Real Life with Native Manning. This is WBISLP 106.9. Our calling number is 252-756-2008. You can also download the app, Awesome Radio app. And you can also catch rebroadcast on Roku television. Several ways to pick up the show. And we do appreciate you. Now, without further delay, here is our talk show host, Miss Nada Manning. How are you this morning?
I am doing well. I hope everyone listening to me is doing the same. Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be with you once again to talk to you about being at your best. But before I get into the topic, I want to make an announcement. It is from our producer, and it's about for here, Pitt County, it's about the hosting a nonpartisan candidate forum for candidates in the May 17th primary election. That's Thursday the 21st from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. The location is Pitt County Center, the GOES,
the
GOES building at 169 Bulldog Run and Ready Branch Road in Winterville. All state and federal candidates have been invited. U.S. Senate, U.S. Congress, North Carolina Senate, and North Carolina House of Representatives. There's also another date on Saturday, the 23rd. The one I just mentioned is Thursday, the 21st of April, and there's another one on Saturday, the 23rd of April from 9 a.m. to 12 noon. That location is Greenville City Hall, 200 West 5th Street in Greenville. All Greenville municipal candidates have been invited. Greenville City Council, Mayor, and Pitt County Board of Commissioners. We ask that you jot down your questions and concerns and send them to us, and you'll be sending it to in an email admin, ADMIN, at WBISawesomeradio.org. Inbox on Facebook. Stop by 2531 South Memorial Drive. Fill out form on our website, www.wbisawesomeradio.org. I will repeat that. Jot down your questions, concerns, and send to us at admin at wbisawesomeradio.org. Inbox on Facebook. Stop by 2531 South Memorial Drive. Fill out form on our website, www.wbisawesomeradio.org. And that takes care of the announcement. We're looking forward to you participating for this nonpartisan candidate forum for candidates in the May 17th primary election. And that's all I have on that. Do you have any additional comments, Coach Garrison?
Not in regards to that. Just I'll be one of the moderators that evening. So
okay.
But other than that, it's your social obligation.
All righty then. I hope everybody took note of that. And now moving on to the business at hand with the show. At your best. I want to say that as I was putting my thoughts together for this subject, at your best, I was all over the place being at your best for different things. Being at your best, my best, their best are all different. Why? Because we're different people. What's your best is not my best. the thing is, we want to keep in mind to always do our best at whatever it is that we're doing. Of course, positive things, not negative. We're not talking about, other stuff that's not, as old folks used to say, kosher. We're talking about being your best on a positive level. Being your best. When are you at your best? I'm at my best in the mornings. I am a morning person. And it's by the grace of God that I'm at this hour doing what I'm doing, because I'm not a night person, believe it or not. I guess you wouldn't think so the way I talk, I guess. But anyway, just want you to know that being at your best is critical to survival. And the first thing I want to bring to your attention is 4 things. And I may not get through all of them tonight, so we'll just carry on for next week. But I have 4 areas: investing faith. That's 1. Hold steady. That's 2. What's your reputation and what are you? That's the 3rd area. The 4th area is beautifully broken. So those are 4 areas of many that I come up with for being at your best. How are you at your best in investing your faith? The prime example I came up with is for us parents or guardians or mentors, whoever we're in charge of. Parenting would say that would be with your children or your nieces or nephews, whatever the youth are that's under you. Being at your best with them. It also helps us to realize, as we educate them on various things, we are educating ourselves as we go along, because we never know who we're going to help along the way. So being at your best, I ask that you would please note, yes, we are on the air. I am your host, Nada Manning, and calling in, like Coach Garrison said, at 252-756-2008 to voice your comments or your concerns about being at your best. And that can be, like I said, in different categories. Now, again, going back to parenting, we want our children to be their best in school, to do their best in school, not only with their grades, but if they happen to be involved in activities, sports, basketball, or whatever other things that are going on, soccer, you want them to be at their best. So what we do as parents is try to encourage them to do just that. And I believe in doing that, we have to do some soul searching of ourselves. Now, many times we parents fall short when it comes to asking the youth in our lives to be at their best, because we may come up short from being told that when we were young. So when we know better, we do better. And during that time of getting to know better, we learn from, I do anyway, from researching, from reading, from observation of circumstances. And we get in our minds that, and we see this all the time today. We talk in real life here. We see this all the time today in our youth in the school system, when many of those children, not all of them, but many of them fall short. And it's obvious that they are not doing their best. And they're not doing their best simply because various reasons. One could be they're not getting what they need at home. They're not getting the motivation from home. And we all know that as older adults, that our children learn from our home environment. And parents, we, meaning me too, parents and grandparents, we are in a position where we want our children to always do their best. Always, whatever it is that they're doing, always do your best. And we encourage them by being examples of our own. When we are involved in something, which means what? We need to be more open with our children, with whatever. Now, obviously, a lot of things they won't understand because they're children and we are adults. So what we do as adults is dig into our intelligence and speak to them at their level and say, okay, for example, give them an example of when you were in the 7th or the 8th grade and the challenges that you faced. And even if you didn't do your best, or if you did do your best, share it with them because they need to know some examples of what it's like to do their best. That's how they learn.
Teacher, I got a interesting comment to make on that. I think I talked to my son about everything under the sun. I think that to this day he got a bank of encyclopedias of subjects that I have chatted with him about.
Uh-huh.
And I gotta say, the older he gets, the more he exhibits some of those things that I've talked to him about, growing up. So I think disciplining him was about the lecture. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
his lecturing him, boy, whew, if he had to sit down and listen to me, that was torture. But my question is, I want you to answer, how do you get your point across when you as a parent are not feeling your best? As an adult, you're not feeling your best, but you still got to admonish someone else. You still got to reprove someone else. You still got to discipline somebody else, and you're not feeling your best.
I believe, because we all have our moments when we really don't feel like doing certain things, don't feel like talking about certain things. That's a part of being an adult. We have to dig within ourselves and focus on things outside of ourselves because it's not about us. We have this young person or persons that we are trying to encourage to be their best. So we have to put our own feelings aside. We are grown-ups. We big girls and boys. So we have to put our feelings aside temporarily until we get our point across to that young person. What they don't, it's okay for them to see that we are not feeling our best at times, because that lets them know that, no, you're not going to feel great all the time, because mom, dad, grandma, granddad, we're not feeling great all the time. But understand this, young person, this is how you move forward. Even when you are feeling not so good and you know that something needs to be taken care of, and it takes an adult to handle it, young person, you can't do it without the adult. Realize when you become an adult, as you grow, become a teenager or a young adult, this is what you must do. You put yourself aside when you're trying to help someone else. The key is to focus on others outside of yourself. Whatever that situation is, with the help of the Lord, you just pray within yourself, adult, saying, Lord, I don't feel like doing this. I'm not there. My head is just not around what's going on with this person. But Lord, I need you to help me to help them. And the Lord will do just that. He will help you to settle your differences within yourself as an adult so that you can help that young person. And you'd be surprised how you come across to that young person. But yes, depending on the age of that person, that young person needs to know this is how you handle it. When you're not feeling good, young person, you put your feelings aside. So we live as examples of how we want our young people to be. And that's the best answer that I can give you. We don't want to ignore that young person. That's the last thing we want to do, because they're really going to walk away being confused. And we don't want that. So we have to put our big panties on and big underwear on and say, I'm a grown up and this is what I must do. You understand?
Yes, indeed.
Okay.
The analogies was clear.
Yeah. We just have to put our own self aside. I mean, that's what the Lord wants us to do anyway. It's not about us. It's about the next person, whether it's a young person or an old person. It's about them that you're helping. And the Lord will take care of you with your stuff. Make sense?
No doubts at all. Yeah, you if you're humble or you're realistic about what's happening, I think people can still receive a message even though it might be difficult. You have parents that have major issues. They're on drugs or substance abuse, if you will, or some type of
Some type of addiction.
addiction or mental
Yeah.
health issues, and they still got a parent.
Yeah. Yeah.
Still got a parent.
And that particular parent of that person with the addiction has a larger challenge because, truth be told, when there's an addiction of any kind involved, it's very, very difficult to handle that addiction. It can be done, but it takes a lot of work and a lot of determination, a lot of self being put aside to help that person, if that makes sense.
It does. And as a child, I had a my dad was an alcoholic, and I tried to be low maintenance. I mean, it made me a little bit more independent. I didn't expect him to go to football games or baseball games or basketball. I wasn't looking for him to do any of those things. It really didn't disappoint me because I knew he had his own issues, and I protected him as much as I could. I really did. So as a parent or as a what do you call those folks? Oh, as a dependent. Yeah. Even if you are codependent of someone in your house, I think you still have to, expect a certain amount of production from the person that's setting the bar, but then be realistic about it and try to help that person when you know they're having a difficult time trying to hold a standard. And if you have a husband or something, and you just what do you call it? Demasculate or emasculate or just downright out disenfranchise them because they're dealing with a difficult situation, and you disenfranchise them, you may not ever get, even in good times, you may not ever get the benefits of that person to
As as
help you.
as a child, getting the benefits of the person as an adult or as a
Yeah,
child.
as an adult, because they need to play their role, to admonish other people and make the other people their best, and they ain't doing so good. And if the wife or husband, whoever, just disenfranchise them, just take them out of that position completely, then you may not ever get the good from that person.
And the point is with that, a lot of young people, as we all know, there are a lot of families where there are young people in the household that are faced with that kind of a challenge.
Mm,
They're so busy trying to protect mom or dad until they are falling short themselves as young children. They grow up really fast because they have all of this on their shoulder, which they shouldn't have. So, because of that, they grow up sometimes being in a good position and handling it pretty well, and sometimes they don't do so well. That mental illness come into play, and those are the individuals that, as I was going to go forward, that I was going to mention in the school system.
hmm
Uh, Being in the school system, once upon a time, being a teacher in the school system, I could see those students from day to day who have a somewhat difficult home environment. They may not say anything, but as a parent and then as an adult who's being observant as teachers should be, we get to see those kind of behaviors. And sometimes it affects their academics.
mm.
And that brings more attention from the teacher to that student because it's all about academics with the teacher most of the time. But sometimes it falls into a more personal level. But being at your best in a teacher's role as well as a parent's role, there's a lot of responsibility. Even though the teacher is supposed to be teaching, we all know that those teachers sometimes have to be parents in the classroom. Sometimes they're put in a position where they have to be parents in the classroom. So being at your best would be in any type of profession, whether it be a teacher or a lawyer or a judge, or in those high class, they have their own challenges at being at their best. When it comes to being in the courtroom with the judges and the attorneys and all, being at your best is a challenge facing some circumstances. We are live on the air. I'm your host, Nada Manning, and we're talking Let's Talk Real Life show. Please call in at 252-756-2008 to voice your opinions about the subject on being at your best. Being at your best. Or you can write your comments in the Facebook section, comment section on Facebook. And make sure when you write that to put the subject down as Let's Talk Real Life, so that I will be able to determine that you were talking about a particular show and you voice your comments. So investing faith involves all of that when it comes to those students. Deuteronomy 11 talks about the importance of taking every opportunity to share words of scripture with your children. And I wanted to focus on this children aspect because children are our future. Children need the guidance and the support. They need to be at their best to produce all that they can produce in life. And it starts from being a child. It starts from home. So we must encourage our children to always do their best. And I used to ask my boys, in elementary school, and they'll bring me a paper home with maybe a C on it, or maybe a B, or even if it's a failing grade. They come home with an F, and I'll ask them. I said, "Now, do you really think you did your best on this paper? Is that the best you can do? Because you know you didn't pass it, right?" "Yes, Mom." And I said, "Well, do you think you can try a little harder? Because this is not good. If you get too many of these, you might not pass." "Well, obviously you won't pass to the next grade." So that kind of talk and encouragement is what the children need. And many times they don't do because they really need attention from the parents. And I'm guilty. I believe that's what happened with mine. He needed more attention than I had to give, or didn't take time to give. I'll put it that way, because I was preoccupied with other things. But again, as I have said many times on many different shows, there is no perfect parent. And we need to be encouraged also as parents, because we don't have all the answers. There's someone else out there that's been through what we've been through, and hopefully we can go to them and share and say, "Well, what would you do if such and such and such and such?" And hopefully you'll be able to get some headlight on resolving that issue at that particular time. But what we want to do is always encourage not just the youth, but everybody that we come in contact with as leaders of any kind, not just parents and teachers, but leaders of ministries. We want to encourage those ministry members to do their best. We have this to do now. We pray that things will go well and they can do their best at it. So it's a big, broad category, and all of this stuff. The good things take time anyway. It takes time. Everything is not done in one day. You can't expect that child to jump from an F to a A in 2 days. It would be nice, but is that realistic? And that's another thing that we have to keep in mind when we're doing our best. We have to be realistic, because everybody don't produce at the same level, even in the same household.
I was discussing this with another pastor, and I want to ask you this.
Okay.
And I want to, give you the basis for what I'm sharing. And the basis for what I'm sharing is the pastor of a church likely in the local situation, isn't he assuming and called to care for and lead the family in its entirety, especially in the spiritual walk? Is that how you would perceive a pastor of a community, a city, or a local congregation?
To lead the household or the family.
Yeah, to care for, to govern spiritually the families that are in that church.
Right. I believe that he carries a lot of responsibility in that category. However, depending on the size of the church, he may delegate some of that responsibility to his deacons. And
Gotcha.
the deacons fall right under him.
But as far as the church and as far as the family, he is that church, that pastor is the
The one to,
lead.
the one to go to.
Yeah, the one who's directing all the benefits spiritually to a family.
I would agree to that. Yes.
Yeah. Directing or doing it him or herself. So, how do you separate you got the social service department, you got the police department, you have the health department, all they play a role in taking care of the city and taking care of the families in the city. And you also have the ministries in the city. I believe the ministries in the city,
What's a ministry in the city?
a church
Okay.
that's getting work done, a church that's doing outreaches, a church that's
Okay.
ministering and taking care of the families.
Okay.
So so I would say that it is the department of the churches, all of them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm almost going to say, don't you think the pastor is just as responsible to a family as the sheriff is in Pitt County? You see, I think that when you're involved in a family, you're taking care of that family, and when the kids aren't doing well, it's almost like the crime rate is going up. So if the pastors are leading the families and taking care of them as God called them, and they're able to get as much as they can done through ministries, outreach in church and outside of church, then they're just responsible for somebody committing a crime or the city or a student or a child growing up and becoming a criminal, becoming a pedophile, becoming a millionaire, becoming a successful person in the community, becoming a mentor, a business owner, as well as somebody that is in jail. So
Okay. I think that
help me out with it.
saying all of that, I'm thinking that the pastors, ministers would work hand in hand, not with the same responsibility, but with some responsibility to avoid what you just described. If the churches in the community do their part in helping our youth, then that will help eliminate some of the things that's going on as far as the sheriff's responsibility go, meaning the children getting in trouble. If a youth go out and rob a store and he's a member, his family is a member at ABC Church on whatever road.
Come on.
And that particular church leader could be the pastor or the deacons. If he chooses to involve more than himself, the pastor has a right to do that. Sometimes if the family is too engaged, the pastor needs some help. And his helpers would be the deacons. Now, if the pastor and the deacons work together to resolve this issue and communicate with the sheriff department, if that youth has gotten in some type of trouble, then the chances of that youth coming out of it being what we're talking about, at his best or her best, is very great. That chance is a great opportunity, that because why? That youth can see that now you have the sheriff, which is the law on one hand, and you have the ministry that's on the other hand, that's trying to show you the right path. The sheriff don't want to take you under his wing. What your wing need to be is under the pastor's wing. But okay, you have to cooperate. But in order for him or her to cooperate, the ministers of the church and the sheriffs or the policemen have to communicate and not just be so quick to throw them in jail. So I would say, to answer your question, yes, I believe that the ministers and the deacons, the head of the churches, have a huge responsibility for our youth being successful, for them to be at their best. If they show that they don't care, like some of the parents are showing that they don't care, then the children go out there and do whatever they want to do and get in trouble. And there you go with the sheriff with the handcuffs.
And I would hope the church could catch them children falling through the cracks for education, falling through the cracks when there's not a good family base for a child. In other words, I'm saying also that I wish, or I like to see the church be as strong as a health department, as a social service department.
Keep in mind, the parents have a major role here too.
Yeah.
The parents, some of these children can't get to the churches unless the parents take them. And some of the parents don't go there themselves. So that kind of puts a gap. That chain is now broken, because you got the parents, and then you got a broken link, and then there's the church, and then there's the sheriff.
And then there's the outreach to the jails. There's the outreach to the streets.
Yeah.
There's, the same, on the same level. And I'm trying not to be unrealistic here. Now, I've been in the prison ministries, street ministries, music ministries. So those that listen to me, I'm not criticizing. I'm just expressing I see the department of the church as strong to make a child be their best, even if they're not involved in that church.
Right.
Even I think the church should be more active. Now, I have seen the church and the ministers and the sheriffs collaborate. I have seen this, and I know that there are events where they join hands and commit to one mission. But I'm just saying, if the church, not that the church becomes the government, but as influential as the government,
it still starts at home. The church and the sheriff can do all they can, but if that home environment does not allow that child to be involved in the church like he or she should, then that creates a problem, because the parents are not cooperating. Much of that falls back on the parents.
And I'll see you, and I will see that child at football practice, or I will see that child get in trouble, and I will catch that child in what I'm doing out in the community. So it's a wraparound service that's person-centered, if you want to look at it in that respect. But I think it's inclusive of everybody, whether you attend church or whether you don't. If you attend church, you work in the community somewhere, unless you work full-time for the ministry. So we got to catch those people wherever they are, even if the parents are failing. Obviously you're not going to be as effective with a family that's dysfunctional. But I'm still saying that the church is going to be responsible to a degree for how many criminals and how many successful people and how many marriages and how many abortions and how many people build great lives in the community. So
and I say,
like, we got a caller, and I am going to try to answer the call.
Okay. Amen.
Caller, this is WBIS 106.9. You are live on the air.
Okay, my name is Sunshine. How are you doing?
Well, hello, Sunshine.
Hello, Sunshine.
We're doing great.
Okay. Now and I have an example maybe with putting this responsibility or a safe haven for the kids, making it known, maybe through the school system, that here where I live, a church I used to attend,
Mm-hmm.
after school, the kids would come to the church. So if any of them needed help with homework, reading, because they, as you stated, falling through the cracks, they could come somewhere where people were there to help them, support them, where they were not getting this in the school system. Because if they're falling behind, they don't always reach back to help these children.
Mm-hmm. That's
So
true.
if the church had a couple of the teenagers or the adults, whoever had the time, that letting different schools in the surrounding area know that Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, we're here to help these kids. Children need to know that, a safe haven, because the parents, as you both stated, the substance abuse or,
Neglect.
using, not being able to help the children themselves.
That's right.
So your point is, Sunshine, that there should be a system set up in the school system on a particular day at a particular time for children to be able to go to get the encouragement and the uplift that they need, that they're not getting. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Yeah, that they could either at the school or at the church.
Right.
As you were saying, you want the church to be involved. So, hey, you guys could come here and, the kids don't have to worry about the bullying or, you have to stay after school and the taunting, the bullying, you can step away from.
Right.
Again, here where I live, every day of the week, this particular church would do this for the kids, and they had snacks, and I really thought that was awesome that they were helping the kids that way.
Mm-hmm. And I agree. That is definitely something that's needed. I think every community should have such as that. As many churches that we have in some cities and towns, one on every corner, there's plenty of space to take in at least a handful of children on a regular basis. The thing there is we have to get a committed group of people, a committed adult set up that will be there for those children, not those that hitting and missing, but be committed to be determined to help those children. Someone that we can count on that's going to be there. Because the children are now, okay, you got them all pumped up now. They know they got somewhere to go and they all happy about it. What we don't want to do is disappoint them. They've got that already, disappointments.
Sunshine, how would you think, would it sound too hard if I were to say I would like to see the pastors in positions in Pitt County, whatever religion you are, just as accountable and answer for the crime rate or answer for a successful lifestyle? Then we take credit, we give credit. Do you think that sounds too hard to say that, okay, the sheriff is responsible for the crime rate, but so are the pastors? The pastors aren't doing a good job because the crime is too high. The pastors aren't enforcing the moral laws of our tribe here, and thus sin is running rampant, which is producing drugs and producing prostitution on the street, homelessness, and unaccountable, irresponsible parents. Could we say that the pastors, Boy, I'm gonna really get in trouble on this show. Does that sound too hard to say? Okay, now I see you putting programs in and all that, but I want the buck to stop with the pastors, just like it stops with everybody else. Is that too hard?
Let me intervene right now, Sunshine. Let me intervene. Sunshine, let me say this. We are live on the air. This is your host, Nada Manning. We're talking real life issues here, people. We're talking real life issues. I ask that you continue to call in. We have a caller that's also on the line right now. And I just want to remind all of you other listeners out there to share your thoughts. Share us with what you have on your mind about this, being at your best with these students and trying to help them. All right, Sunshine.
Okay. Yes, I think that would be sort of harsh. Because it's so much to clean up. You know, it's so broad. So you have to find ways to catch some of these young children, young adults. And another thing that where I'm from, they would maybe somebody sponsor a trip. Some kids have never been fishing before in their life, or challenging them in a sport, you know, out there and see if you can wean them in, pull them in. You have to come up with different things with young ladies who they are harder to tackle than young men, but maybe a cooking class if they have interest. You know, you have to, the old saying, you have to catch the fish before you fry it.
you got that right.
Yeah, you have to find some avenue of interest.
And the best way to do that is to do a survey. I think if a person take the initiative to cover about, I don't know, maybe 10 block radius in a particular community, and just have your surveys and just go around and just ask particular questions and talk to them while they're there, because sometimes you might not get the survey back. So you might want to take it with you when you leave to make sure that you get their input. But in order to gain their interest and find out what they would like to do, I would strongly suggest do a survey in the community. Just put it out there and collect it. And then the team of folks come together and say, well, this is what I came up on South Side or the West Side or the North Side, and go from there. That's how you will find out what they want. You don't want to just do something. You want to find out what they would like to do. Huh?
And you're right. I said, and you're right. So finding what age group or where you want to start.
Yep.
Again, back into the school and do your survey there. Maybe, you know, because then you could ask whatever age group you're trying to focus on. I know you want as many as you can, but start in the school. Who would be interested in? Because you're not going to get all the kids, but have them, whether they take the papers from homeroom class or everyone fill them out, somebody come back and collect them and see what you get from that.
Right.
Because that's where because they all group together in one local place. They all from the community, but we can go to the school. In the church. Start in the church and at the school.
Right. How did that sound, Coach?
I think it sounds wonderful, the engagement, because you're looking at the time. And I know when she first began talking, she said it's very broad, but a life, you know, we live lifetimes that are divided up in a lot of generations. So now I'm at my particular age, there's generations behind me. And so I think that if we live forward to the future and realize when we're teaching a child, that child is going to beget other children. Their children going to beget other children, you know, like those genealogy things in the Bible. So I think we can teach for the future, and 20 years from now, we get grown, sturdy adults. If we get discouraged because nobody wants to volunteer now and
Right.
No, we got money, we got incentives, we got to discipline ourselves to to get this right, so that another generation won't pass and another won't pass
Exactly.
with addiction and all of these things that they can pick up on.
Very good.
Kind of a give and take with the police department, because you have so many people that's not trusting of them because of their abuse of power and the racist mess. So unless you have some that's willing to work with you all, and you have to start somewhere, maybe it could be beneficial.
No doubt.
It's certainly not going anywhere as it is right now. That's for sure. So nobody's doing anything. And the whole thing that's being said out there is, well, you can't tell them nothing, talking about the youth. Well, how hard have you tried? Again, at your best. That's the subject for tonight. At your best. How hard did you really try to reach that young person or that group?
Right.
That's the key. Don't just say, well, you can't tell them nothing. Yeah, well, okay.
You can't tell some adults nothing.
That's true.
Right.
That's true.
Let's spread it out like it's supposed to.
Right.
We just figure that they're supposed to be learning, but I think adults, you should be learning every day as well. So,
right.
I am in the process of starting with teen pregnancy girls.
Oh, are you?
Yeah, and I'm meeting with ECU graduates, and they're working with me on this to see if we can't start somewhere. And even though they're already pregnant, that's not the end of the world.
Right.
They're not going to be the only ones. They're not going to be the last ones, because we're going to have a group of girls after them. So
You're right.
That's one initiative.
Well,
and I thank the Lord.
Let me ask you this. Since you have young, pregnant young ladies, what would your take be that when they have these children, to name them after themselves versus giving them the father's last name?
You asking what do I think about the preference of the last name?
Yeah, I'm curious. Is it okay? I'll wait for the answer.
Well, I'm thinking that
should they name their child after them, or should they? I think I lost you. I don't know if you can still hear me or not, but the last name, I think it should be a decision between the parents, the mother and the father. If the father is going to be cooperative or not, I think that decision should be between those parents of that baby. Whether or not he's going to stay around or not, that's kind of, it depends type thing. That's my response to that. I think it should be a decision between the parents. And I hope that answered your question. Seemed like everything went blank, but the clock is still ticking, so I'm going to continue to talk. As we move forward, we're going to talk at the next, we got about 1 minute. I don't have time. We're at 49 minutes counting. Well, Lord, we're going to end this show at this time, and we're going to give you praise. I think I got less than a minute left, so I am going to close it for tonight and just thank the Lord for the opportunity that's been given. And like I said, I didn't think I was going to finish this thing, because at our best is, anyway, thank you, Lord, for this opportunity.
Thank you, Ms. Sunshine. We appreciate it.
All right.
Look forward to hearing from you next week, okay?
All right.
And
You
Miss
guys have a good
Isaiah,
one.
Azil, Jack, come on back and join the conversation.
Okay. Have a good
All righty. So we are going to end our show and counting down to about 14 seconds. I just want to pray and continue saying thank you, Lord, for this opportunity. We've done well tonight. We've gotten interest. We've gotten conversation. Thank you, Lord. Join us again next week, folks. God be with you all. Take care of yourselves and be blessed.
WBIS LP Awesome Radio.
Partial funding for this program is brought to you by 33 East Apartments. Still looking for a place to call home next year? Live better at 33 East. Your best value in student housing. Only 8.
Thought about that question differently. Okay. Do I get to see that question later? That comment?
East 10th Street in Greenville, North Carolina, right across from Cookout. 33 East Apartments. Live larger, live closer, live better. Thank you, 33.
All right, can you hear me?
Yeah, I wanted to write that question down.
Yeah, we're still live on Facebook right now.
Oh,
I'm going to try to address the question.
well, it's a statement. It's not a question. It says, I wish I had made that decision and thought about that question differently. It appears that Miss Jack is saying that her decision in making that child's last name is second nature now. I mean, second hindsight now. She sounds like she wished she hadn't had the last name on the child. I don't know if that's what she's trying to say. But again, I say, Miss Jack, that it's a decision that should be made between the parent. If both parents agree or not, I know the child got to have a last name of some kind. So it's my desire as the mother of these babies that you all would pray about it and ask the Lord to show you which direction to take instead of, because sometimes we name our children out of the heat of the disagreement with the father. I ain't naming my baby after you. Look how you treated me. Well, see, that's the wrong attitude. What you want to do is go the smart road and say, Lord, I would need you to help me to make a decision about this baby's last name. Make it plain to me so that I can do the right thing and go from there. That's what I suggest that the mothers do.
Let me ask you this question. How can you not name a father that is the father of a child? There's absolutely no way that you can tell me that your feelings for that moment will be the feelings that you have for the rest of that child's life. And that child is going to inherit your same feelings that you have when you didn't give the child their last name.
That's why I say there are so many today. There are so many, and it's not just today, yesterday as well. There are so many young mothers out there that are angry with those fathers for whatever reason. And they don't, it's nothing new under the sun. And they don't want to have anything else to do with the dad. No, I'm not going to name my baby after you. That's the mother feeling insecure, hurt, disappointed, whatever negative verbs you want to use. That's what she's feeling when she's saying, I'm not going to name my baby after you.
And what's that got to do with the biology of what just happened? That's the man's child.
That's true. I agree. But we're talking real life here. Real life says that the idea of having that baby's last name is not going to make or break that child as far as on the birth certificate is concerned. My point is naming that baby is the decision of both parents. It should be. They're responsible enough, supposed to be, to name that child so that child won't be just hanging out there with just any kind of name. And like you said, Coach, that's that baby's daddy. Why can't that baby have that daddy? You know that's his daddy. So why can't you name him or her with his last name? And that's a valid question. But again, generally it's the mother that's calling the shots.
Even if he's not there to sign the birth certificate, it's still his child until you prove that it's not.
That's
That's
true.
what I'm saying.
That's true.
But anyways, I have to agree with you because there are circumstances that people, choose to say they're not going to have anything to do with that parent. So, what you holding your cell phone up for?
I have a call on it.
Oh, you got a call on the cell phone?
I have a call on it. Well, now I got another message. Hold on, caller. The young lady was cut off. But if you're naming a child alone, then that makes a difference. Yeah, of course it does. It makes a difference. If it's just you and the dad is not involved, then okay, mom, you still have to choose the last name. Okay? So, I don't know.
Unless you were raped, you had something to do with it. You're going to get me in trouble. Unless you were raped, you were there consensually to create that child.
Yeah.
Even if it was an issue with birth control.
Yeah.
You're still there to create that child.
Yes.
And it's still that man's child, whether the child has got his last name or not.
That's true.
Okay.
So what's the big deal of a last name?
Because if that child want to research his genealogy, that child get 20 years old, he might have a relationship with his father. You pray that would be something that could happen. However you might be feeling at the moment, that you're mad, somebody tricked you, you didn't plan this at all, it was a mistake. You're talking to a guy that his mama did not want me. She slept with my daddy that night and she wasn't trying to. My brother and sisters now are 10 years apart. My sister passed away. I was a mistake. She tried to abort me. She tried to use a clothes hanger to kill me. She tried to drink some poison. She tried to jump off a kerosene tank to abort me. I'm still here and I'm still my father's child, whether he was a drunk or whatever he was, however she called him sorry, he was still my dad.
And the last name is what it is.
Garrison.
Right.
I didn't let other people define what my dad was supposed to be. Nobody told me that I could feel a certain way because you said it. Oh, your dad is a drunk. Yeah, he is. Okay.
If you're naming a child alone and then he comes back days after and changes the name, that is also a circumstance.
Yeah, now if he get grown and the judge let him change the name, then that was on him. However it's done.
Okay, I have a caller on my phone. Yes, caller.
Yes. Again, this is Sunshine.
What's up, Sunshine?
Look, my take, and you guys tell me how you feel. I guess the reason I threw that out there, having females in my own family, my take, and I hear what Coach was saying, and I heard you, that when a female being single, young, and having kids, meaning in their early 20s, mid to late 20s, you're having babies. First one, the chances are slim if the guy, like you said, we just kicking it, you get pregnant, have a baby. My take is, name the child after yourself. This is just my take.
Oh, you mean if you were cheating?
I'm lying. You may have 2 or 3 more. It might be Henry child. It might be Ricky's child. Not to have all the babies with all the different names. This is just my take. opposed to if one marry you and he wants to adopt all your children, where it's consistent.
Okay.
Because we see so much of this with young folk.
Different last names.
All the baby, yes.
You really got a point.
Yeah.
It's not healthy for the mother or the children in the long run. Okay, I had a niece that felt her name should have been the same last name her mother had and that I had. But she had her father's last name. She didn't feel like she was really a part of the family. Yes, you are. But your mother chose to do X, Y, Z. You know, so it could affect the children as well as the messiness where the dad may be there and he may not be there. And in this case, her father married some other woman and had other kids, and that's fine. But don't spread the litter. Do that make sense?
Yeah.
And that's just my take on it. I mean, nobody's going to think the way I think, but, you know, that's my take. But I'm listening, Coach.
I love the way she just enlightened me. She just enlightened me on a whole world of blended families and stuff like that. And I say this. I say it looks like, from what I just heard, that sounds like a whole show to me. But it looks like, from what I just heard, that if you got a family, if you got a woman that is out there in the streets and she sleep with multiple men and have different children, then you clean up some of her tracks by naming the children all after her, so it won't damage the psyche of the children in the family, and they got different last names.
Yeah, that in a nutshell. Not saying that there is, that in a nutshell. So,
because in my community, you had people that would cheat, and they would go and cheat with somebody else's wife, and they would have, and I know in my family, they actually, the wife would have the child, and so you got a child in the family that was a product of adultery, and I see why you wouldn't want to name that child after
the rest of the family,
after Mr. Bobby Ray down the street. But you know it was his child.
Yeah. Yeah. It really puts the children in an awkward position. That's why it's so important with us as adults. Miss Jack got a lot to say on here.
I see.
I have to disagree with that, because the mother chose to give her body and have all those multiple children and or partners that has nothing to do with last names. My opinion, just unfortunate that's the case. But if that man wants his child to have his last name as well, once DNA or court ordered, the name will change as a child or as an adult.
Good gracious sake. Go ahead, Miss Jack.
Look,
she handled that. She's closer to my side.
One day, then if it's a boy.
I really think that all of you have made a valid point about this names, and it's definitely a wake-up call for a lot of young ladies out there that's having these multiple babies by different men. And I still say it revolves back around the home.
So what you gonna say to the children that you're working with right now when they say, should I name my child after my daddy, after daddy?
It depends on their circumstance. I'm not going to be the judge of that. I don't think that I'm in a position. What's she saying now? A son should always have his father's last name, regardless of his lifestyle.
Ooh.
Well, that son have to carry the name wherever he goes. I mean, he have to carry that name and whatever other children he have 10, 20 years from now, that name carries on. But going back to those girls the teen pregnancy girls that I'm going to be working with, if they ask me that, I am not going to be the judge to say, well, no, you should name your baby after him. And no, I'm not going to do that.
Right.
That's not my call, because I want them to feel comfortable within themselves. They already feel bad because they got the baby. I'm not there to make them feel even worse about a name, because to me, it's a moot point. You got the baby, it's yours, and you have to take care of it, regardless of the last name.
Right. Put the ball back in their hand.
Exactly.
What would you do?
That's right.
Put it back in their hand. There's something for them to think about. I would lay it out there, but the whole scenario. But then you make that choice. Right.
Now, can Miss Jack hear us?
I believe she can, because she's making these comments.
Okay. Well, Miss Jack, you were saying about the father's last name, regardless of his lifestyle. I agree with you. A son should have his father's last name. Now, again, I'm not going to be the judge of who. That's the mother's choice. But it makes sense for that boy to have his father's last name.
Yeah.
Now, the girls will probably end up getting married again anyway, and their name going to change anyway, or they do that with a hyphen, like a lot of them do today. So I hope that this conversation has really answered most of your concerns, and you just, Coach Garrison, you brought it up.
But you're saying having somebody be their best, and the people that's involved in our lives, making sure that happens. And you kept talking about the family, so I'm like, how you can do this when a lot of us got dysfunctional families?
Absolutely.
How you gonna be your best if they gonna either lift you up or they can cut you off with what's going on in their life?
As adults that are responsible and mature, as we all have some growing to do, but we all have a responsibility where we can help, not hurt, every individual that we come in contact with. If the opportunity arises so that we can help them, that's what we should do. We should not shun them like many of us are doing with these teens. You can't tell them nothing. That's not the right attitude to have. I'm sorry, I don't feel that way, because they need some help. That's why they're acting out like they do. A girl will definitely always have a different last name if she marries, so that's definitely a different thought and decision. Absolutely. That's Miss Jack. Yes, ma'am. You're absolutely correct. And this is something that, like I said, I hope that you all will walk away with some insight on what we have discussed about this topic tonight. I agree. No one is perfect. Absolutely. None of us are. We do the best we can and move forward and not ignore anybody. That's the worst thing to do. I've said that before. We don't want to ignore anybody. So we're going to close down. We are well over our time. And I appreciate Coach Harrison giving us this extra time as we talk about being our best. And it's critical. We can do this, but it takes more than one person. It takes a group. Like the words say, it takes a village to raise a child. I believe that. I believe that. And it takes men and women, not all women and not all men. It takes men and women. So, Coach, you get some men together and we can do this.
All right. You got one.
I got one. And sometimes all it takes is one to get something started, because word of mouth carries itself. So we want to do our best to take care of things that are needed to be taken care of. And that's our young folk. And some of these grown folks, but that's a different story.
Good night.
We'll work it out. All right. So are all hearts and minds clear at this time for tonight anyway? This morning, rather. I hope so. Sunshine, I appreciate you calling in. Your dear heart. You got cut off and you said,